because judgment in these days really has a bad connotation. Most people, when you say God is going to judge you, they think of, punitive, or God is angry. No, God isn't angry and God isn't punitive. God corrects. In fact, I think it's James that says, God is the Father of spirits, which is another scripture that shows us that our Father is God. He is the Father of our spirit. And anything that is not spirit is not eternal. So if you are not a spiritual being, that's a crazy statement because we all are spiritual beings. But it is only that part of us that is not godly that's going through the fire. And we're all going through the fire. Thank God we don't have to wait till we die to go through some kind of fire. But God is purifying His people today. And in the fire, if you understand what God's correction is, then you will pray for judgment. You will pray for correction. I remember years ago when I first discovered that God's fire was a purifier. I used to go to the altar in church and I'd cry and I'd say, God, judge me now. Let your fire burn within me. Well, I really didn't know what I was asking for. I knew I wanted it. But if we knew the circumstances that would be raised up that we might have to go through, we probably would run from the fire. And when I first began to experience the fire, I thought it was the devil. And I think a lot of us, especially those of us who've been in Pentecost, attribute the works of correction to the works of the devil. And so when I would get in bad circumstances, I'd bind the devil, not realizing I was just going through the fire. And then we were taught all this spiritual warfare stuff about, beating the devil and binding the devil. And, religion had princes over our cities and keeping us in darkness. And I'll never forget when I went to Seattle when we first moved there. We were told that's one of the darkest areas in the United States. You'll never be able to preach the gospel in Seattle because there's a prince of darkness over Seattle. I heard that from a lot of places. But you know what keeps that prince of darkness over Seattle? Is the belief that it's there. There is no devil or demon with any power whatsoever. Not even the...
That's right.
If there ever was such a critter as the devil, the scriptures tell us he was destroyed at Calvary.
That's right.
So why do we need classes to teach us how to do spiritual warfare? Well, we really do, in a sense, but not the way we've been taught. Because the warfare has nothing to do with anything on the outside of you. The only warfare that you should be involved in at all is the warfare between Adam and Christ. That's the great conflict. And the battle of Armageddon that we all will experience, and it's not going to be over there somewhere, the battle of Armageddon is the battle for your mind. And all of the so-called judgments and things that are coming upon what religion tells us, all the sinners are going to reap all of these horrible judgments coming from God. These judgments are coming to the house of God for purification. The 7 seals in the book of Revelation are all about the unveiling and the breaking of the seals of this book.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, right now the seal that is being broken over most is the seal over the mind. And we're beginning to realize the carnal mind is an enmity against God. There is absolutely no way that we can take this image of ourselves of being a human being that is pretty good, going to church, doing all these things, to take that thing and perfect it and make it ready to enter the kingdom. It cannot be. I'll never forget, I'll tell you, for years I cried to be righteous. And one day I woke up discovering everything that I desired to become, I already was. Everyone has that substance and that being within them.
There you go.
And so I asked the Catholic priest, I said, you use holy water? Yeah, we use holy water. I said, well, what makes it holy? Oh, he said, I can tell you how to make holy water. He said, you get you a pan, fill it with water, you set it on the fire, and you burn the hell out of it. Where was I? Hallelujah. Well, that's what's happening to us. We're going in the fire, and it is burning the hell out of us. It really is. But their minds were blinded. 2 Corinthians 3:14. Their minds were blinded, for even until today, this day, that same veil remains over your face when you read the Old Testament. It doesn't have to be. I can read the Old Testament now, and I don't have a problem with it. But I read the Old Testament as an allegory. And I realize that all of those Hittites and Jebusites and Amorites and all of those ites are all things within our being. And we are here to inhabit this land. And so to take possession of this land must be done by our spirit and not by anything of the reasoning of the mind. So God is awakening us. We were mentioned again at the dinner table tonight the scripture that says, awake to righteousness and sin not. Well, you know how I heard that? And most Christians hear that. When you read that verse, awake to righteousness and sin not, your carnal mind says, well, if you quit sinning, you'll be righteous. Yet that's exactly the opposite of what it says. If you awake to righteousness, you won't sin. Because when you awake to righteousness, you realize within me, within my being, within the essence of all that I am, no one can be more righteous. No one can be more holy. I'll never forget when I was seeking God for holiness. I knew that the first time holiness was mentioned was when Moses stood at the burning bush. And the Lord spoke out of the bush and said, take off your shoes for you're on holy ground. And I realized the only reason that ground was holy was the presence of God was there. Take the presence of God away, it's not holy. Where's Christ today? Where is God today?
In his people.
God is in his holy temple.